From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi and welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about equals, so consider this your spoiler warning.
Yeah, turn back now if you haven't seen this movie yet, and then you can tune back in.
What was your number one takeaway from Equals?
My number one takeaway, I think, was that I hate Romeo and Juliet. I remember reading that when I was in high school, and initially it's quite hard being Shakespearean, but by the end you sort of get totally sucked into it, and there's the whole double suicide things going on. And when I was watching Equals, I had flashbacks to that, and I went, you know what? I don't like it.
Look, it is Romeo and Juliet. This movie.
Life's too short for tragedy, so let's stick with.
It didn't dawn on me early in the story, but as it plodded along, I was like, Romeo, Juliet, Yeah. And as you get towards the end,
we'll get
it's
to
just
that,
like, Romeo and Juliet.
That plot point there is just like, I told him to wait back at his apartment, and oh no. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's my number one takeaway.
Fair enough.
Tragedy is not my bag.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll have monsters eating people all day long, right down to the bone. But yeah, star-crossed lovers having a tragic ending, not for me.
Definitely.
So tell me then, how would you classify this, Mark? Hope, a warning, or an experiment?
Look, I think it is a warning, I reckon.
Warning.
That's right. There's
Danger.
Dialects in the background, isn't there? I think it is a warning because it's a post-apocalyptic society, and this society has decided that, you don't get to touch each other, you don't get to have relationships. And then I suppose, so I think it's a little bit more in the warning sort of category, to be honest, compared to like thinking about the lobster being an experiment, because that, I think, this film or this story is saying to us, that the humanity led to an apocalypse, that we caused. That was the impression. And then this remaining human part of us that goes forth is then trying to figure out who we are as humanity, and so in the film, they do talk about, that they've sent rockets into space, and they seem to be all watching it, like wondering what's going to happen. And he does say later in the film, like, I've always wondered why we send rockets so far away when the answer is kind of here, because that's the question I think that humanity is trying to decide is, who are we? Who are we as a people? So I think it's an experiment. What about you?
Experiment? You said warning.
Oh, warning. Sorry, not experiment. It's borderline, but I think it is warning.
Warning. I suppose, warning. It's not really hope.
We can
though,
disagree. Sorry, it's fine to disagree.
Thinking, hope is it? It kind of is a hope story too, though, isn't it? That we'll get on, but I can see the warning there that we ignore ourselves to our own detriment. So,
well, I guess the thing is as well, if we allowed ourselves to kind of, because again, humans are probably going to survive no matter what, aren't we? Like there'll be some part of us that will survive, whether it's only 1% of us or just even a dozen of us. I mean, and as humans, we always talk about this, don't we? Like with zombie stories, that there's always some that survive the outbreak. And, if we send nuclear bombs, if the big countries, China and America and whatever, bomb each other, and there's an outfall of nuclear radiation that destroys most of the world and blah, blah, blah. Probably at the end of the day, there'd be some sort of people left somewhere.
There's too many people floating about to.
Yeah. And so but then I guess the question is, so if that all happens and then these people kind of Lord of the Flies style, it's a new society. It's a chance for a new beginning. And I guess this story is saying, well, that's happened. and now we are whatever 100 years from that point, and
it's sort of a bit of a utopian story too.
It is,
because it's
yeah.
I know there was no homelessness.
No.
Everyone seemed to have food.
Yep.
It was quite peaceful, beautiful and serene in its own way. So there was certainly sort of a community, or not really a community, it's more of a communal living.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat positive. I would,
Yeah.
Certainly I wouldn't have called it a dystopian future.
No, not at all.
Which
No.
it would have been easy to go with the whole lack of emotion and interaction type thing to make it look a bit darker, but I suppose the Lobster was a bit darker in that sense.
Yeah.
In that there was these strictures around how you can relate and what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this, they had the rules. Well, they weren't even necessarily rules; they were recommendations.
That's right.
There was no one there with big sticks or guns to force you into doing things.
I thought that was a bit interesting, wasn't it? That the police or whatever they were, and
health and safety.
Yeah. So and they didn't carry weapons or anything, did they? They just kind of complied with it, and even in the den when they said that people are taken there, they're not actually tortured. They're just sort of basically suggested they should commit suicide. Like that's the recommendation, and they kind of help them to commit suicide, but they don't actually do it to them. They just edge them along.
Help them find a peaceful end to their life.
Yeah. So this society is very peaceful, but again, coming out of some sort of, we're blowing the living shit out of each other. Well,
all that's left is the peninsula.
That's right.
Well, it's a shame we didn't get to see that.
I wanted to see it too. Yeah.
So in the meantime, though, what have you been up to this week? These past 2 weeks, I suppose.
Look, it's the same as last time. I'm still editing that feature script, and I've got another one bubbling away, so I've started on that. Something I did want to mention, Bart, was have you watched or catched on Netflix? I think it is Sex, Love and Robots, or Sex, Death and Robots, and it's like a little
Love, Death and Robots.
Love, Death and Robots. Yes. There we go. We finally got the title. Sorry, I've seen a few of them. Haven't seen every single episode, but it has blown my mind. It's really a couple of them have really grabbed my attention, and they are in our world. Surrey.
Can I tell you my peculiar experience with that particular series?
Yeah.
So the first episode is sort of gladiatorial combat.
Yes. Yeah.
A little bit racy here and there, but otherwise, okay. The second one was kind of a bit humorous with the three robots and the cats.
That's right. Yeah, a little bit softer, a bit funny.
And then the third one, there's like because you understand, I'm watching this on the train.
Okay.
So you can imagine I'm leaning forward, elbows on knees, holding the phone there. So anyone who was sitting upright could easily look over my shoulders. Yeah. Strangely enough, the alien monsters tearing each other apart and splattering audience with blood. I didn't feel a problem with that. Yeah. The weird bondage.
Yeah, that third episode's the killer.
Orgy scene.
Yeah.
I had to turn it off. I've got no problem with this, but I have to be sensitive to the fact that there's lots of other people on this train. Probably
you didn't want to be seen as a dirty pervert on the train, did you?
Well, out of context, it's a little screen. I've only got my earphones in, and there's just like guys in rubber masks and a mostly naked woman wearing weird makeup dancing about the place. It's kind of...
I can understand that, but come on, sorry, you got to fight the good fight for sci-fi.
Socially awkward there, so
it is.
That's okay. I'll just wait until I'm sitting out, because normally I like to get to the end of the train, so there's no one on my right hand side, and that way
you look at the filth.
That way I can sort of sit and I can watch the filth as much as I like.
Yeah, but look, it's grabbed my attention. I've seen that episode. I've seen those ones you've talked about. I've seen that one, and the other night just kind of didn't have much time at home, and I just kind of, and that's what I loved about it. Just chuck it on 10 minutes. The next thing I know, I watched like 4 in a row. So an hour goes by.
I do like that style of short film because it gets you straight to the juicy point.
It does.
You're not really trying to develop characters so much, but whatever character development you have is also highly compressed. It's quite good.
So I've really liked that. How about you? Anything you've been doing in the creative fields?
Well, I finished editing my season 1 novel of Exit Plan.
Excellent.
So I'm up to the laborious process now of formatting it, and I'm actually running it through Grammarly as well, just to catch any sort of mistakes I've made. I'm already sort of catching a few, so I'm hoping to get that through as quickly as I can. And I've got to rope my wife into doing some design work on a cover because I can't be shelling out $400 or $800 for a book cover when,
Yeah.
well, quite frankly, I'm hoping to get $5.50 for this book. So, no, actually, everyone's going to love it. Everyone who's listening.
You should do like a classic fantasy cover, like a drawing, just hand drawn by the writer, by the author.
Hand drawn by me would
Yeah.
be, well, that wouldn't take very long and probably wouldn't really suit the tone too well, but sure, I'll give it a shot. It's going to be fairly simple. It's quite good.
And where you planning on publishing that?
That's going to straight to Amazon.
Excellent. Very good.
Okay, no, let's move on.
That's okay.
Let's move on
The
to
world
Equals.
is full of new ideas, so
Equals is a story, the hidden story of mathematics.
It is, isn't it?
No. Not really.
So it's a bit of an emotionless utopia, that you're not allowed emotions. Like I joked tonight, we're not allowed to touch each other during this podcast.
Which is actually not a joke.
No, no handshakes, no high fives. We are not getting into that. And then they have a syndrome that is diagnosed by the medical profession, which is basically just emotions, really, isn't it? Like if you have an emotional response, then you've suddenly got to rush to the doctor, and it's SOS.
Yes, SOS. I do like that. That's kind
like
of a marketing thing as well. SOS, switched on syndrome.
That's it. Yep. So if you then diagnosed with that, and then there's 4 stages of it as well, which we find out, that you're going to go from stage 1 through to stage 4. And when you get to stage 4, you're sort of at that point that then you have to go to the DEN, which is another acronym.
Yeah, the DEN. What was
Remember what the DEN was?
Department of Emotional Neuropathy.
I think that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah.
Or neutralise it. No,
which we get the great Jackie Weaver, the Australian actress, popping in. She's all over the place at the moment. She's so successful. Everyone just wants her in some piece of the movie.
I was just paying too much attention to Guy.
Yeah, Guy Pearce as well. He pops in. So we'll talk a bit more about his character. So do you want me to run through the plot, or do you want to...
let's kick off the plot and then we'll...
Yeah, so look, it is, like we were saying, it's a clean post-apocalyptic world. There doesn't seem to be any crime or problems in society, but everyone is on their own. And we have our main character, Silas. He shows up and we see him sort of live his life in a way. And he's on his own. He eats on his own. He wakes up on his own. It's a very clean, white, futuristic apartment, and then a very clean, white, futuristic society. Something I really picked up on was the lines. There's a lot of lines in this world. In his apartment, like his clothes come out, his clothes go back, the breakfast thing comes out.
Yeah, I quite like the way nothing in his living space was sort of a permanent fixture.
Moved.
Which I think gave you the feeling you weren't going to grow attached to your couch where your favourite things, because
no emotions, sorry,
as soon
no
as you
emotions.
stood up the couch into the wall, off it goes.
And then we learn very quickly about that SOS syndrome, and we also learn that there's something called a conception test that women have to go and do, and so later we find out that means that they're being tested if they can have a baby. Because again, in this world, straight away, I started thinking, well, how do they have more children?
Yeah, is this purely a medical thing or what?
And so that was answered as the story goes on. And then he realizes that he is having an emotional response, doesn't he?
That's
the
he
first
has a
kind of
nightmare.
Yeah, he has a nightmare. And he goes to the doctor, and I found that a really funny scene. That doctor sits in that little squeaky chair and just kind of talks to him about it, and then comes over and stabs him with this pen that does everything
no warning
for him.
on that.
No.
It's just, we'll need a blood test.
Yeah, and it's just a little sort of silver pen with lights on it, and it lights up, and he goes, yes, you do have SOS. And he goes, I'll give you some inhibitors. That's your first stage of it all. And we're also told that basically other people commit suicide when they find out that they might have SOS. So society, I suppose, is divided up straight away that if you have SOS, your sort of life appears to be over, compared to those that don't have SOS. It's very emotionalist, the whole society. when he's at work, it's very clinical. When he's in society, everyone's walking to work and stuff. They don't really talk or smile, or they're not listening to music or anything like that. Reading books or, watching filth on the train or anything. We don't see any of that throughout the story. It's very march into work, etc. I felt there was this is sort of a bit of the change in the story is someone commits suicide at his work. The boy falls out or jumps out the window, and then he notices his co-worker Nia, his reaction to the death, and it's like she's biting her lip and she's sort of squeezing her hand, and it's like she is having an emotional response. So to me, that's that. And then from there, there's sort of, I suppose, a little bit of a debate where he's kind of going, I'm emotional, she's emotional, but actually I think I like her. I've got feelings for her. So he's kind of falling for that. And yeah, he dreams of suicide. He diagnosed with the syndrome. He tests positive, and then he's given the drugs, and he actually then starts following her, and he's following her around. She's sort of ignoring her, and then she confronts him and actually rejects him. So she says, no.
He says, no, I don't have the bug.
No.
They call it the bug.
They do call it the bug.
I don't have the bug. You're just imagining things.
Yes. Yeah, so then that all happens, and then so he's a bit dejected, but he doesn't give up. And then one night at the workplace, when everyone else has left, she sort of subtly leaves ahead of him, and he follows her, and she goes into the work toilet, and in the toilet, they kind of get it on, basically.
This is how you know it's a utopian society, because the toilets were clean enough that they felt happy sitting on the floor.
And they were unisex, male and female in the toilets, which we do have in some office towers these days, but they were, it's all safe, no emotions, so there's no worries about that. So there is quite a long scene of them getting together, and it's very slow and all that sort of stuff. And she then reveals through this relationship that she's actually a hider. So she's never been diagnosed with the syndrome, but she has emotions and she knows it. So their forbidden fruit continues through some scenes, and we follow them on that, and it's quite interesting. They get to know each other in sort of body and spirit and as a relationship. And then the manager happens to come in on the toilet, and he basically lets Silas know that he knows in a really subtle way. And I liked that scene because he was basically saying, look, I know, but, so stop it and it's okay. So, that was a good turning point, good midpoint, I thought. And, so they have to then stay away from each other. They have to go, this is it. We can't, continue this relationship. So they kind of break up, and he decides to actually leave his job, which was apparently a really good job. And he goes and
it all seems a bit undifferentiated to me.
It does.
To tell the truth, I'd prefer to be the gardener.
Yeah, the gardener seemed like a good
awesome.
job.
They'd have, plant gardens, and they have beautiful gardens there.
Yeah, I didn't say that before, but he was like an illustrator on this awesome, huge iPad.
Yeah, he would draw the artwork for the articles about space travel. I think mostly.
Yeah, well, that's what she was working on when he started. He was drawing. It seemed like there was maybe survivors. The peninsula. There was people on the other side, or there used to be, or something. Yeah, I don't know. But so he used a massive iPad and he used to draw on it in a cool way. So his solitude as a gardener, he's lonely, she's upset, she's lonely, love is brutal. We get the Guy Pearce character, Jonas, turns up and suddenly says to him, well, actually we have a support group, a bit like alcoholic support group, a bit like AA sort of thing. We get together, and in that support group was quite nice really, because we do meet that Jackie Weaver character, Bess, the head doctor of the den. But in that support group, it was a nice debate about, one of them was saying, I hate this. I hate being emotional, I'd rather be the other way. And then one of the others is like, it's good to be emotional. And, and then Bess, who's a hider, is saying, it doesn't really matter, because to me, it's like even eye contact, when someone's emotional, it's so valuable, even if they're dying, it's a valuable experience. So we sort of have that debate between them all. And Jonas also saying that, well, in the past, he'd had an experience with a woman that didn't end up too well, but here we go. And so again, we're having really good sort of the world was closing in on Nia and Silas. So he also gets told what actually happens at the den, which is basically they're encouraged to commit suicide. And that is from Bess, who's saying that she is the head surgeon there, or head clinician or something.
Yeah, she's a clinical worker of some sort.
Yeah, so, and apparently that's got a bit of weight in that society. And they decide, they're debating, they're both individually, Nia and Silas sort of going, well, should we? Oh, we shouldn't. Oh, it's also tension. And they sort of are saying, is a relationship worth it? You know, because we'll probably end up at the den. Like, we'll probably end up dead. Yes is the answer.
Yes is the answer.
So she pounds on his apartment door and they come in and then they actually make love. So before that, they haven't really made love. And so they have a really, that's right. They have a real, that filth again. I hope you weren't watching this on the train. Not that we really see much in that scene, but they get it on. They have a good relationship. And right after that, of course, it's a good plot point. The cure. You know, they announced the cure is available now. So anyone that has SOS, this is not an inhibitor. This is actually the cure. Come get a vaccine shot.
Jab you in the neck.
Put a
little sticker on it.
You're done. So that's quite interesting. So they then decide, well, he says, I don't want to get the vaccine. I want to let's leave. Let's go to the peninsula. So they decide to do that. And at the same time, she is called for a conception test.
Yeah.
And so you sort of think, she's going to get, you know.
It's sort of one of those things where you're going, it's going to happen. And then,
that's right.
Test.
But they decide she should go to it because it'll be okay because she's a hider.
The worst that would happen is they go, you've got the emotions.
Yeah.
You can't have a baby.
That's right.
Off you go see a doctor.
To go see a
doctor.
doctor.
And then they just go off
That's right.
to the peninsula.
Yep.
But what happens? Is that what happens? Do they just go to the peninsula and be happy?
No, we're hoping that's what happens. But when she's done in there, she's sent to the den. And so he thinks...
Because she's preggers.
Yeah, Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, she is pregnant.
You forgot that one.
I did. And that was a good little twist.
It's one of the rules of movie making. If two characters have sex, they will become pregnant first go.
Right. Well, that's what I thought in Passengers, remember? I was like, really, they set me up with that herring in that film. Especially saying that one of the other characters is a midwife, but no. Yeah, so she is sent to the den. It's not looking good. He's waiting and waiting and waiting. Jonas and that tell him, just hold on. Don't do anything rash. Trust us. And of course, after a night, you know, she hasn't come back. And so he rushes to the den. And at the same time, Jonas and Bess manage to escape her. They swap her identity with another woman that has died in the den, which I thought was pretty cool.
Eva,
I think, yeah. So she gets out and she rushes to his apartment thinking that, you know, is he going to, you know, what's happened to him or whatever. She gets there. He's not there.
Yeah, he's not there.
He's gone to the den and he's told by a security guard that she committed suicide and she's dead. And so then he goes crying off into the city and she's waiting and waiting and waiting and he finally turns up. And what has he done to himself, sorry?
He's got a sticker on his neck.
Oh, no. What does that mean?
It's a good boy sticker for being stabbed in the neck with a cure.
So he is now cured of the SOS.
Yes.
Oh, no. So he doesn't feel emotions.
He's got about 5 hours. I said it takes about 5-6 hours.
5 or 6 hours for it to really kick in. But he says straight away he's already feeling a bit funny.
Yeah.
And
so the one last night together.
You know, they have that and he, you know, falls off to sleep. She falls off to sleep. And then, of course, when she wakes up, he's
dressed all prim and proper. White clothes.
He's back in his white clothes and he doesn't feel emotions.
Yeah.
And he says to her that, basically, that he can't feel anything. He remembers, but he doesn't feel anything.
Mm.
Which I thought was a bit interesting because, like, if you remember it, I mean, yeah. I'm going to be interested on your science take on this medical breakthrough because I think it is interesting, isn't it? Can you really inhibit human emotion to that point, you know, if you're in love with someone? But then they do still decide, stuff it. We're going to go through with the plan.
Well, he said we had a plan. We're going to do it.
Let's stick with the plan. Right? So, and she's a bit, you know, down because obviously he's not in the mood anymore. Yeah. And so they're on the train and they're separated because, of course, you can't kind of give that away. And then when the train is going to the last stop or whatever, the peninsula, I presume, on the way, they'll meet in a... Yeah.
Jonas's buddy was a pilot.
They were going to the border, weren't they? So they weren't going to the actual peninsula, only joke. And they decide to, you know, they are alone and then they do sit. He moves next to her and they sit next to her and he actually holds her hand.
Yeah.
And that's how the film ends. So that's the plot. That's the plot rundown.
It was beautiful, well told. I didn't cry even once in this movie.
Oh, come on.
I was very nearly bit through my own lip, that's all.
And you could see, like we said earlier, I mean, Romeo and Juliet, it's a tragic love story. I mean, they don't die, but it's kind of, in a way,
it's almost
lost his...
scene for scene of the... in Romeo and Juliet, just for anyone who has not read it or seen something of it, there's a priest who Romeo and Juliet confide in, i.e. Guy Pearce, Jonas. And the priest says, hey, I've got a plan we can get you through. Just meet. He says, so Romeo, you go off and do the thing that you've got to do and meet at the mausoleum. Okay, and Juliet, you come with me. And then the priest, I can't remember his name, gives Juliet the sleeping drug. Says, take me to that and you'll appear to be dead, and they will whack you in the mausoleum and they'll all cry, but they'll all go away. Romeo will get here, then I'll make sure I'm here, give you the antidote until you be best buds for the rest of life. The priest, of course, I believe in Romeo and Juliet, he gets too drunk. And so he turns up late. So Romeo turns up, finds an apparently dead Juliet. And being bitterly sad about this, stabs himself in the heart and dies. Just as the priest turns up, not quite telling him in time, gives the drug to Juliet, who wakes up and finds the dead Romeo, picks up the knife, stabs herself, dead, and the priest is left to go, oh, geez, that's not right.
Whoopsie.
And so I was seeing this coming, and if I can, I suppose we're sort of into the whole best scene, worst scene thing, and this is kind of one of those, most of my worst scenes are actually also best scenes. It's just the ones that make me uncomfortable, and it's this, as soon as Jonas said to Silas, go back to your apartment and wait. Trust me, we've got this sorted, our plan will work. And then he went off, and I was sort of starting to get a bit of going, okay, something bad's going to happen. And then they did the whole switcheroo, everyone will think you're dead. I went, this is the Romeo and Juliet. Jonas is the priest. And there's going to be and that's when I was like, no. Because I didn't think they were going to kill themselves. But I was thinking that they might both end up taking the cure. Because you can imagine he goes, finds out, she's dead, goes, gets the cure. She turns up at the apartment, he's not here, he must be gone. And maybe she sees the lineup for the cure and he's coming out, she goes to get the cure. No, it would be too sad. So we're going to talk about the relative preference. So this is now, we've seen Passengers, The Lobster, and Tuna Mornay, The Beyond.
The Beyond.
Lobster. And now Equals. And we've got, what's our ranking is The Lobster, Passenger, Beyond?
That has been so far. And we've been both on that same
And now
degree.
we've got the Equals coming in. I'm wondering if Equals doesn't do the Lobster off the top.
No.
Not yet.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe next week's we'll take the Lobster down.
Yeah, maybe. We'll let you know what we're looking into next week. Look, for me, I'm just going to say it. This one does come in at number 4. So I think if I look at those 4 films and I just kind of, if I sort of put them, I'd already said like The Lobster is our favourite so far. And that's my favourite. Passengers is a close second. The Beyond was quite good as well. I think that was the third. And I think this just comes in at 4th for me. Like in those categories, those 4.
I agree.
That's just my ladder. That's my ladder.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. And that's because Equals a very interesting film. It didn't have an explosion in it, which I like explosions. No, but I think again there's sort of a replayability. If I was about 20 years younger, if I was 25 years younger, I would have been all over this film. I probably would have rewatched it a couple of times, and I can certainly see that being the case.
Probably, look, and there's many, many, many good things about this film. For me, just it would have been nice to have a bit more context of the world or something. Like I liked the way it was shot and that, and I do want to talk about that a little bit later, but I could have just had a little bit more of that actual world. And we were teased a bit, as I said, like when he was drawing, we sort of saw this old world and they talked about the bombs and stuff. I don't know, like and even as we said, where were they going? Sorry,
The peninsula.
The peninsula. Like maybe we should have been able to see that or something. I don't know. Like it would have been nice to just to get a bit more of the sci-fi going on. Like there was the romance was in this film, and I have no problem with that. Like I like that, and I liked the similarity to Romeo and Juliet.
I actually think they did the romance quite well.
Yeah, I think they did it really well as well. I agree, but it would have been nice to have maybe a bit more sci-fi, like just a bit more of the science.
I found myself, and I do it a lot with these sort of post-apocalyptic things. There's this society, they're sitting there very advanced, they've got spaceships, and I can't help but think, are these the only people, like this one city, is this it? Is that, it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, yeah.
Unlikely, because they do have space-faring abilities. It would take, and the reason I say that is because it takes a lot of resources, which means you need a lot of people all working together from the ground up. But then again, they are a very egalitarian society where they would have been able to very closely plan and measure their resources to be effective.
Yeah.
As opposed to a society made up of different sets of groups and individuals with their own motives and agendas pushing and pulling. But still, I can't help but feel, and I get the same question with all of these post-apocalyptic ones, is what's like, we only see some tiny, tiny fraction of the Earth is a big place.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're thinking, so this is like one little city in the UK, I assume. So what's happening in China?
Yeah, what's their society like? Is it the same?
Are they
or
totally
is it...
wiped out? But they must, because they're not communicating. We're not seeing, for example, delegates from some other civilization who they don't talk about, those people from America who are all emotional.
I think the presumption of this story is that this is it, maybe it. Like this is maybe it, and so that's what I mean. Like it's the birth of. This is all that's left, and this is the way they've deemed us to be safe and blah, blah, blah. But I suppose coming from with the Beyond, which was our last episode of so much science, like to me, this film could have had a bit more science, like, or a bit more explanation about the world we were in. I could figure it all out because it was all pretty simple, but, and it interests me. And as I said, I loved the lines and the whiteness and stuff. That always hooks me. But I could have just done with a bit more, science fiction stuff shown to us or explained to us, or because the world, like I look at those movies and I'm interested in that world as well. Like, why is the world like this? I want to know a little bit more. Because
it does seems like it would have been nice to sort of see a bit more of their, I suppose, government.
Something else.
They seem to have a bit of a central planning. They did,
yeah.
But there was no, and it didn't sort of go into too much about how people just seem to get assigned jobs.
Yep.
There was no aptitude testing, maybe, I don't know. But it would have been interesting to see some more of that, but it wasn't that kind of movie, I guess.
And I mean, look, the director, Drake Doremus, he is known before this, and looking into him, he's the romantic genre king a little bit at the moment and doing it a little bit in a way. His movie Like Crazy was a really big, successful romantic film before Equals. Not science fiction at all, just a real romantic comedy. I haven't actually seen, have you seen Like Crazy? No. But anyway, so I think it was about 4 years before this one. Very successful financially and critically and everything. He had a film come out last year, which is again a science fiction romantic film called Zoe. And it's about, and to me it looked really interesting. I watched the trailer for it. It's synthetic humans falling in love with humans.
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah.
if I was synthetic, I wouldn't go anywhere near this filthy real humans. That's gross.
Well, I think it's the guy that's, because it's sort of an experiment, as in he's created it and he tricks the human that this is another human, but he's controlling the robot kind of thing.
The Blade Runner deal.
Yeah, a little bit like that, I guess. But more about the romance of it again. So obviously that's what Drake is into, and that's cool. So, and he seems to be doing it really well. And of course, we do have Kristen Stewart, the lead actress from that little tiny Hollywood series from a few years ago. I don't know. I'm not going to admit. Sunset, is it? The opposite. I don't know if I'm going to admit that I ever saw one of those movies. Twilight. Yeah. I love vampire movies, but that film was probably a little bit more for teenage girls. Maybe.
I have to say, actually, the very first Twilight movie, I did appreciate the fact that it deviated from ordinary vampires.
Yes,
it also deviated. The
main
character wasn't such a snivelling wreck.
Yep. Yeah, she was a stronger character.
And the high school scene wasn't as...
Yeah, the high
jocks
school
versus
scenes were good in
nerds.
that movie, weren't
There's
they?
actual... Like, every time I was expecting someone to come up with, like, a scathing burn, they're actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
So from that perspective,
and I did
appreciate
like the vampire family, you know, when she sort of meets the family and they've been around, they're all old but they're like...
Yeah, we should go... So you're into a 16-year-old girl?
I mean, yeah, we don't need to go into those politics. Come on. Let's keep it in the movie world. It's all good. It's all good. Let's not poke holes in the story. Let's keep it hopeful. So she's very successful, and same with the actor as well, Nicholas Hoult.
Oh no, I love him.
Yeah, he's been in all sorts of stuff.
He was in a great
UK actor,
a great romantic comedy called Warm Bodies. Mm-hmm. That was another Romeo and Juliet story.
That is, isn't it? Actually, I have seen that.
You've seen that one? Yeah. I really liked that. It was quite humorous. And it was a different take on the whole zombie genre.
Now, apparently the goss for this movie was that he had just broken up with Jennifer Lawrence. Okay, so he'd been dating her for a couple of years, right?
Hunger Games means Twilight.
Yeah, that's right. And she, Kristen Thompson, I'm not too sure, but she was dating another guy as well, and they'd broken up just before. So they both just broke up, and then they went into shooting this movie, and they didn't form a relationship beyond a friendship, you know, according to the gossip columns. But yeah, the online goss is that, you know, so they sort of both came into this film a little bit emotionally broken.
Well, they did have to do a pretty spicy sort of... There was no nudity involved.
No.
But it was still quite a hot, panting, grabbing and shoving kind of scene.
It was, but... maybe we should just talk about best scenes, but I thought that was a very good scene.
Okay,
because,
best scene number one is
this scene, and it might make me sound a bit dirty in that way, but if you think about this world where it is emotionless and women get inseminated as well and give birth to babies, we don't even know, do they raise them as mothers? And I'm not too sure, because it seems like it's a very solitary life from what we're shown. And maybe mothers do raise them, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're raised by...
That would be too much switched on syndrome going on.
Yeah, I think so. It couldn't really be a mother. And we also find out that mothers have not, like they, you know, of course they don't give birth and then they're kind of put on the banned list or something. But I just was thinking that when they do, you know, he follows her into the toilet and they do get it on, it's sort of like two young children getting it on. And I think that's really appropriate.
Like the term teenagers.
Teenagers, we can say teenagers, but they're just so innocent. You know what I mean? Like they're just the littlest touch, and they're both kind of like purring. You know, they're both into it.
My wife and I, because we're talking about, if we're going to talk about, say, our viewing experience here, how I saw it. My wife and I, we watched this the other night, and we saw them go off together into the bathroom stall, which didn't look like a bathroom stall.
No, it didn't at all.
It's a beautiful little cabinet they were in, and the two of us, we sort of had a bit of a giggle because it was just so much like meeting the girl or the boy behind the lockers or behind the shed down the end of the oval, and you've arranged the meeting, but you're not sure what you do after that, like. You know, and like, oh.
Or those party games, you know, in the closet, like the light goes off. What do we do now? You know,
we kind of wanted to be in this position, but now we're here.
Now we're here. What the hell do we actually do? Yeah.
How does this...
But in typical kind of, you know, Hollywood movie, of course, it'd be like, you know, ripping the clothes off, female nudity, you know, getting it on, you know, that sort of thing. But I think they really... And that's why I reckon it was definitely a really great scene in this film, because it lingered for a while, and I think it needed to, because again, as I said, like if in a society there's no emotion, there's no normal touch.
They wouldn't have teenage romance movies.
No, they don't. They
wouldn't have Fast Time at Ridgemont High.
No. Well, they can't have porn or anything, can they? Because that would be emotion. Like
no romantic comedies, nothing to go off.
Yeah. So what do you do with the opposite sex when really you've been taught nothing about the opposite sex or love or whatever?
It's just raw biology.
Yeah. But it was very much, you know, and that continued in that sort of fun and game section of the film, where they are just kind of getting it on in that bathroom and laughing at each other. And of course, they don't, like, you know, as I said, later in the film they have sex. So they don't even have sex, but they're really building a very big, strong, emotional relationship. Yeah. So, but I liked that. The little thing I looked into is what Drake, the director, did for that was, and a little bit unconventional, it was actually one of the later scenes that they shot together. So they'd actually been doing a fair bit of bonding. They'd done a lot of scenes together. They'd been working together for quite a while. So, and I guess coming off big breakups personally, they sort of maybe had a bit of emotional tension, ready to touch each other. And also just very long takes. So instead of, in most films, it's just really short. Everything's staged. We're going to do this. He's going to touch you there. You touch him. It's all sort of pretty staged. He just basically rolled the camera and he did 30-minute takes. And he actually said, and so, and they, they're not actually going to kiss. They're not actually going to rip each other's clothes off. They're just going to
heavy panting and ruffling,
breathe and sort of ruffling and what do you get out of two actors in that scenario? And he did say he ended up with a bucket load of film that he wished he could have kept in the film. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's good to always look into, the director's sort of thinking on that. So he left it to late, and then he brought them in for that emotional scene to kind of do that. So yeah, that was a good scene for me. What about you? What was the scene for you?
Yeah, well, that was a good one. I would have chosen that one.
Did you have another one?
I do. I've got this great one that early on in the film, when he wakes up from the nightmare and runs into the wall. So, so the picture is...
I like that too.
The camera is staged outside his window, which is a perfect square looking into his place with just a couch extended from the wall.
Yep.
And he was kind of... You can see he was struggling a little bit with his being a bit switched on. And he fell asleep, and it was a silent moment. Like, you couldn't hear what was happening inside. He just suddenly sprang out of the couch, ran off screen to the left, and you could see then his reflection in the mirror that was at the back of the wall, and he just ran into a wall and stumbled back fell over and kind of tried to recover. And I quite liked that because it took you, you were a voyeur looking in on there. You weren't feeling what he was feeling, but I think in having that remote viewing experience of it, you got that feeling of, it was a surprise. It was a shock to him as much as it is to you, because you don't get the build up for it. It just suddenly jumps up and runs into a wall off screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made me laugh because, there's slapstick. Who doesn't find that funny?
Yeah.
And I found it's quite good. So that was one of my favourite scenes.
My wife quite often does weird stuff like that as well. Like, she'll get out of bed, just, like it's that real sort of intense, reaction to a nightmare or a dream or something, I
get the hand suddenly grabbing me. Sorry, where's the monkey?
That's right.
He's gone out for a banana.
I did laugh at that. I liked as well, there was a really nice little scene where Silas, realising he liked Nia or was in love, and what happened in that scene was he was eating, and he was eating a bit of meat. And so we're really close on him, the knife cutting and then the eyes, and he's thinking, and I really kind of was sucked into him. It felt like you were in his brain almost, and they really had his eyes diluted as well, his pupils. His pupils were huge. And
I wasn't quite sure what that scene was showing except emotion, because he sort of doesn't cut properly. He cuts and kind of...
But it is showing emotion, because I think early, the previous scene, very early in the film when he eats, it's very mechanical. Whereas in that scene, and it's followed the scenes of him sort of looking at
and it looked
her
like he was really enjoying the food.
That's right. Yeah,
he took a mouthful.
He was enjoying that steak. He was
cut
aggressive
awkwardly, and then he put it in his mouth and he chewed it, and you see his face. He's
Yeah. He was liking it, and he was thinking. And to me, I liked that. I really liked that scene, because no words, it's just an actor acting it out, and I really liked that. Any other scenes?
I do really like Nicholas Hoult. I've seen a few of his films. By accident, I've seen his films. Did not realising it was, because we keep calling him the About a Boy.
Yeah, of
because
course.
That's sort of, I guess, the big movie that he was known for. Jack, when he was 11 or something.
Well, he's done well to keep going, hasn't he? Because sometimes
he's been in a number of these sort of films. He was in Jack the Giant Slayer, and he's going to be in that new Tolkien film as Tolkien.
Tolkien.
He's landed a good role there. So I'm probably actually going to see that because it's Tolkien. I'm interested in his story. And also because I've learned that Nicholas Holt's doing.
I've seen a bit of his stuff before, like you've just said, and but you see him in this movie. He's sharing the lead, and there's no reason for him not to be the big Hollywood actor, is there? He could be a lead in a big action or anything.
Interesting
really,
though. Recently, there's these that particular look he has about his face with his cheekbones, along with Benedict Cumberbatch also has a sort of sharp face with big cheekbones, and then almost a bit like there's a couple others I can't remember, but it sort of seems to be a bit of this British
the cheekbone
that
thing.
British look is coming into vogue or something.
Yeah. Maybe he's too British to be the big American actor. I don't know, but we see it with the Australian actors crossover, and they can play leads sometimes. And I don't know. We've seen it with English actors before. So the other scene I really liked is, of course, there's actually a few scenes which is they touch themselves, and it's nothing inappropriate. They're touching their hands, and again. Technically film sort of wise, I think it's nice because at the end they do hold hands. And by this, Silas and Nia both do it. He does it in the shower. So he's in the shower and it's like he's patting his hand and he's having a moment with that. She's sort of in her, I don't know, she's at a building or something overlooking the park and she,
well, she has a shower as well where she's washing her hair and then it's ends up sitting on the floor with just the water pouring on her. It's sort of
but I mean the touching of the hand stuff, there's 2 or 3 scenes. There's also when they do start getting together in that fun and game section, they pass each other. And in other films we've seen that they touch, but they don't actually even touch, but there's this little, hover between the two hands.
They shift their hands just so they dodge each other.
It's almost like they're vibrationally touching. And she also does it with her fork. Again, eating. There's a bit of eating in this film, but she does it like when the new illustrator is waffling on about being an engineer and blah, 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 being really boring. And because she's thinking about, well, look, I love her, dude.
Totally switched off.
Totally switched off. And so she's eating food and she's kind of like rubbing the fork.
Oh, yeah, that was a bit weird. I sort of...
No, to me it's not weird. To me it was, again, that touch.
Yes, indeed, but weird in that that was what was taking her attention was... feeling texture.
That's right.
Yeah. And she was distracting herself from this
boring,
the mundane. She's going, this isn't, I really liked it when.
That's what I do all the time. Sorry, when I'm bored, I rub a fork. But I find myself doing that. And I think emotionally humans, we do this, don't we? We, if we're in a boring business meeting or someone is rabbiting onto us about something, we distract ourselves, and I think that's again emotional. Whereas in this society, it's like, no, because we do have that a couple of times even when they eat at work, that was really cool that their chairs are all diagonally opposite, so they're not looking at each other while they eat or anything.
You have to look
and then when Silas has the SOS diagnosis, he's separated to this other section across the courtyard. But they're not, they talk to each other. But it's really mundane, boring.
They talk about just the details of their job or what have you.
Yeah, but her rubbing the fork, him touching his hand, and she touches her hand. I thought that was really nice, pulled together. And then really, when I watched the film a second time, I realised, if you think about it, at the end of the film, they do touch. And it's almost, I think, at the end of this movie, symbolically, because they touch each other, and they touch each other, of course, when they get together, on the hands. It's almost like, I think at the end it is saying that's all we need. In fact, that is better than being in a society with no emotion. We would rather even be on our own in the middle of some jungle, nuclear wasteland, and he can't even feel love for me anymore, but we can touch each other's hands. That's what the film is kind of saying. That's how powerful the love is between them.
Indeed.
So if that doesn't make you cry, I don't know what does.
Well, see, this was and I've already spoken about the best worst scene, which was the whole realization that it was this possibility for the Romeo and Juliet tragedy that sort of built up. And
so for you, it was a prediction, knowing
it was
that
moment where the story had managed to come to the point, the characters had come to the point where it suddenly revealed itself, foreshadowed, if you like, this foreshadowing of, hey, you know what's coming next? Nothing good.
Nothing good.
And so that was, that's kind of the worst scene for me, because I turned to my wife and said, they can't do that. That would just, I don't want this whole, I've seen a couple of movies where the consolation at the end is that the woman has a baby.
Yeah.
Everything else is rubbish, but she has a baby. And I was thinking, they're both going to be cured. And the baby, because I mentioned earlier about a woman had a baby that had SOS, was born with SOS. Yeah. Is that supposed to be a consolation? Is that they have a baby and the child is born?
Is emotional,
Emotional, and they kind of keep it. I just thought, as sweet as that might seem, it would just make me too sad.
Yeah, good point. The only real bad scene or worst scene for me was Jonas Sunnily appearing. So I just thought as a plot thing, it was a bit weak. And what I mean is, Silas is queuing for medicine, these inhibitors, and suddenly Jonas is like, "Oh, Silas," they just suddenly meet in this cure at the chemist.
I think that's
I don't know, it just
seen each other at the suicide, but
yeah,
no, you're right. I get the feeling there were probably more scenes, and they didn't make the cut.
Yeah,
because the way he introduced suddenly so familiar.
Well, they met, and that's on reflection when I watched the second time. They meet before he gets diagnosed, and Jonas is saying he's a level 2 or 3 or something, and so they're sitting next to each other. So they meet in that scene very early in the film. You're like, right, and then they never see each other until all of a sudden he's in this line for medicine at the chemist or whatever, and I was just as a little, I was like, and thinking on it when I reflected, like, you could have had Jonas come into the story again, so like just meets him again at the doctor's surgery, like, oh, this is a thing where we meet here every time I'm on some sort of medicine diary, like someone like on chemo or something, and it's just like, oh, we meet here. So you could have just had a little scene like that a couple of times. And then it would make more sense. But
it wouldn't surprise me to find that there were more scenes of them.
It could have been.
Didn't make the final cut because maybe it brought too much focus to Jonas when he was just a vehicle for the build up to the tragedy, the foreshadowing.
But overall, like it was a pretty tight story. It was a shorter movie. It was on I think an hour and 40 minutes, and it really clicked along.
Isn't that funny? That's a shorter movie now.
Yeah, it's Beyond was 90 minutes. It's like, yes, to me that's yes.
90 minutes,
90 minutes, hour and a half.
A lot of these ones. I watched one the other day, Hold the Dark, which is a 2 hour 5 minute.
Yeah, well, that's not too bad. It's more when you're getting up to 2.5 to 3. You're like, oh, come on, people. But anyway, I thought overall there wasn't other scenes that annoyed me. Like the rest of the film ticked along really nicely to me.
Yeah, it was good. You might say there were large periods of dialogue and things. I could imagine there would be people get impatient. I like you. I found though that the music. I've been paying more attention to that now. That every time we talk about this film, we talk about the sound. I sort of think, oh, there's basically no sound in that. And then you bring in all these points and went, actually, no, there was. There was all those. Yeah. So pay more attention to that. So I could certainly see, though, if you weren't joy watching it, you might sort of go, it's dragging a little bit.
Yeah.
But then that is what the story is. Yeah. The story isn't about a wormhole opening in space.
That's right. It's a love story, yeah.
A wormhole opening in a young man's heart.
Very nice.
Something like that.
Okay, so like I said earlier, I am interested. I mean, this is about the science, sorry. I mean, I know this is your world, the science side of it. So we've got post-apocalyptic. It's mentioned that people, I think it is mentioned earlier that they bombed each other. But apart from that, there's not much else said. There's conception duty. I thought that was interesting. A testing for emotions. Is this something that we can, we actually test? Hold on. These are all questions I want you to answer. Every single one of these. The medicine as well, I thought was really high tech, obviously, to come up with a cure for this SOS. With the inhibitors, again, when we have that debate scene with the support group, Jonas and Bess and that, it is kind of suggested by one of them who says, he's basically saying, oh no, this is bullshit. Humans are born with emotions. They're suppressing us.
It's something they do between conception and birth.
He was saying, no, this is wrong. Like genetically, something has changed, and we know, that's right. And then also the spaceships, there is spaceships going out there. I can't quite remember what Silas says, but, they watch one of the spaceships going out to find answers. But apparently it is quite high tech. It's far out in space.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are all my science questions for you. But they were also my points. Like I thought, okay, well, these are the science bits in this film.
Well, yeah. So some of the interesting points I thought in there, and there are a number of movies where they go this route of futuristic society has done away with emotions because emotions cause pain or cause war.
Yep.
Some of the movies they do it better than others.
Demolition Man,
Equilibrium. In this movie, however, they did a few things quite well, and I don't think they ever said that they had done away with emotions exactly. They more just sort of said this is their normal, and then you'll get this switched on syndrome where you start to basically freak out. You go crazy.
Yeah.
In their from their worldview, that is like mental health issues. You might say schizophrenia or something along those lines. They couldn't have done away with all emotions, and the reason for that is because they still had motivation. There's a strong link, evolutionary, between the purpose of emotion and our motivations, and they were clearly highly motivated to work together, to progress their society, go into space, and to share their stories. So they had to, and they also actually showed emotion. When Silas revealed that he had switched on syndrome, people were disgusted.
Yeah, they were.
So, and we need disgust because that protects us from eating poisons and getting bitten and things. And they made him write his name on his mug so no one else shared his mug, and no one would eat with him, and he had to work at the corner of the room. So clearly they haven't actually got rid of all emotions, but they've seriously suppressed all emotions to do with human connection. And emotions are very hard to have, of course, define, and lots of people have tried, but there's a strong link then between what you think and how you feel. And that's because physiologically your body responds, that symptoms for many emotions are exactly the same. If you have fear and excitement are the same thing.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some people they have said, if you're ever feeling really scared, just start breathing. Because the difference between fear and excitement is you breathe when you're excited.
Right.
And you hold your breath when you're afraid. Your body responds the same way. It shoots out adrenaline. It makes your hair stand up. It starts pumping blood around your system a lot faster. It shortens and quickens your breath so you start taking more oxygen. The only difference in it is what you're thinking. And when you're on a roller coaster, this is exactly what it does.
Yeah.
You're scared, going up and up and up and up, and you're looking over the edge, but you know you're safe. And so when you start going down, it's exhilaration, and you feel happy, and you laugh, and you so on. These emotions then are a physiological response, but then the psychological context we apply to that response. You could well imagine the confusion these people would have, where they're used to being pretty even keeled, and then Silas really just wants to be with Nia, like doesn't know why. He goes up and reads her article and plays back her notes so we can just hear her voice, and follows her into the bathroom. Again, they don't know why or what, they need to. That physiological response they're feeling, caused by oxytocin almost certainly, is not accompanied by the normal social cues or the mental images or thoughts or understanding. So they would be quite susceptible to mental health issues. Yeah, definitely. Because there's a real imbalance going on there.
But sort of extending from that, I did think psychologically, when you take something like Maslow's hierarchical needs, which is good for writers to know anyway, but when you take a society like this, I did question how the society would succeed by making us unemotional. Because at the same time, like with Maslow, sure, in this society they are fed, they're fed well, the food looks healthy, all that. So, okay, that ticks the box. They are safe, like it doesn't seem like there's a threat. And even as we said before, the police, shelter. But then there is that basic human need for touch.
A community, which is after shelter, I think, is community.
Is the next step. Yeah. So once you're fed, and which they're fed well, they are sheltered well, and they are safe, the logical thing for humanity then, of course, is relationships, community. So they would be missing that. But then maybe that explains why, we see suicide, and they do say a lot of people commit suicide. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, they wouldn't. But
I did question how they would continue to be, like this idea of creating a society emotionless or without the emotional need of someone else, how successful it would be over time. Because would people just end up committing suicide? Like everyone.
I wondered why they were bothering to go into space.
Yeah.
They clearly, and I have a feeling that was part of their genetic modifications they've done to themselves.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the original progenitors of the program, would have considered the fact that, okay, if we take away this kind of love and we really dull down empathy, because they did have some empathy.
Yeah.
They could get a sense for feeling when people were upset or not quite right.
Yeah.
But then they didn't have that empathy of, like, I think Silas was asked very matter-of-factly, oh, are you going to commit suicide?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a mean thing. The person
No.
was actually asking, is that, and he says,
Genuine
oh
question.
no, that's when you're in stage 3.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like, it's just normal thing. So they do have these emotions, and I think they've been programmed to go into space, and this could actually be more the science fiction they follow onto is, did they have this need to get into space because there is some answer in space? Is there another colony of humans that they want to try and reconnect with because they've been stranded after this bomb fight? But I was just going to say, though, they're talking about the cure, and they also talk about genetic manipulation. If you're going to look then at emotions as being a physical chemical response, which we then put mental context to, they'd have to have built a society which doesn't have the social context of a lot of these emotions. That would be one thing. The other thing then, of course, would be to cut out these hormones. And the hormones are created basically by, they're little proteins for the large part, created by DNA. So your little cell in your endocrine glands, say your hippocampus or your pineal or your wherever, inside the cell there, DNA unravels with, what is that stuff called? Is it script days or something? Oh, geez, if we had any listeners, I would ask them to tell me what it is. I could Google it, of course. Okay, so
Tell us what it is.
DNA unravels a little bit. RNA goes up and sticks onto it, and that sort of encodes that portion. That peels off, and a copy is made. And this copy then allows for protein chains to form. And depending on which section of DNA gets copied as to which bits of protein are created. And these little proteins then go out into the bloodstream and hook onto, and that's your hormone, flows through your bloodstream, hooks on some part of your brain. For example, oxytocin is the love hormone, the hug drug.
Right. Yeah.
It's what MDMA, ecstasy, does.
Yep.
Ecstasy causes your body to produce more oxytocin and then inhibits your uptake. So it connects, and then when it connects, it actually gets sucked up, absorbed, and it stops reacting further. Like once you've used up one molecule, it stays used up. But MDMA, for example, one of the things it does is slows down the ability for your body to clear oxytocin. So you get a build-up, which means that you end up with a feeling of ease and peace and love.
And you want to hug everyone.
Your sense of touch becomes far more emotional.
Yeah.
Hugging is common. So
Yeah.
this also happens at childbirth, which is an interesting question there, but we're talking about the conception. Because what we do nowadays, in fact, is at childbirth, or shortly after, in order to help get the placenta cleared, is the oxytocin causes uterine contractions, probably along with a couple other things. I mean, oxytocin by itself doesn't do it. If you gave oxytocin to a woman who hadn't just given birth, she's not going to suddenly fall out of cramping, I guess. Actually, I'm pretty sure, because you see them dancing in the nightclub, so there's no problem there. So actually give them an injection of oxytocin to enhance what has already been produced for the body, to make sure that it clears it out. And the female body, creates this oxytocin at childbirth, in part to do that, but also in part to make sure they pick up this thing that's just dropped out and cause them a whole heap of pain and cuddle it. Interestingly enough, fathers fall into sort of a synchronous process too, to synchronize their hormones a bit. So fathers have a tendency then of, at childbirth, being a little bit more emotional and a bit more misty-eyed and want to be involved. And that's not a surprise.
No.
And it makes sure, we should bring that question though in this movie here, is if they've got this conception, they must surely do like C-section, external incubators, because that process of hugging itself also induces oxytocin.
That's right.
It's a two-way street. So if you get oxytocin, you want a hug, but the hug itself also causes
creates
it.
more, and that's why they'll put the baby onto the mother's chest now. They didn't used to, but they sort of, again, to increase that oxytocin, I think, to increase that bonding straight away. It's again, in this movie, it does question, we don't know any of that, but in this movie, but it did, I was thinking like, how does this whole thing, how is this society successful?
And then you're kind of thinking, it's not too surprising that these people are growing up largely with dulled emotions. As children, they're taken away from their parents.
They must be removed from their parents.
Raised in a sterile sort of socially engineered environment.
That's right,
That's right from the start.
Again, I suppose that's the thing with Maslow's hierarchy in this film. If they are raised like that, but they are well fed, you see, we can think about like an orphanage where maybe they're mistreated and they feel like they've missed out on their parents, and that. But in this world, maybe not. Maybe they are like, you know, it's very clinical, but they are well fed. They are safe. They are sheltered. You know, they are with other children their own age. They are educated. So maybe it's not so bad, you know. Like,
well, that's
you know,
what I thought. I liked.
So they are devoid of emotion.
I liked the
normally.
fact that the society seemed quite functional. A lot of the times they have these dystopian societies.
Yeah, and there's cracks.
And
there,
it just seems, even when they try to make it look like it's solid, as an adult, I'm looking at it thinking, there's no possible way that they would all just die off so fast. You know, they would just die of hunger, or they wouldn't bother helping each other or something.
Yeah.
But I think they did quite a good job in presenting a society that was low on emotion.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have, they had a little bit of fear, because you need fear. If you don't have fear, how are you going to not like jump off a cliff?
That's right.
People already do that with parachutes and die. Yeah. Imagine if you had like a really suppressed fear, like no fear, there'd be no risk. You know, you wouldn't be able to weigh up risks.
That's right.
You go, well, let me see, I could jump off the cliff, or I could walk all the way down. Oh, it's a bit boring to walk all the way down. I'll jump.
Yep.
I might hurt myself.
Doesn't matter.
Why
does that matter?
A bit of pain, whatevs. I assume that's what they do anyway. So they did quite a good job there of showing.
I think so, yeah.
They showed that. They were a bit afraid of Silas, a bit afraid of, you know, are we going to catch emotions from him?
Yep.
And
is it contagious?
Interestingly enough, you can catch emotions from people. I'm
definitely,
sure you're aware that if you walk into a room where there's been like some people have had like a big argument or something, and there's all icy cold, and you can feel it.
Yep.
And
you walked into a drama fart.
You sit there, you drama fart. That's a good way. Yeah, and you sit there and you don't. Yeah, you feel uncomfortable, and then you start getting a bit kind of cagey and worried.
Yeah.
So you certainly can catch emotions.
Yeah. And likewise, if people are like, if you walked into a room where everyone is crying, you know, I mean, like you're going to sort of get sucked in and laughing, you know, like that's why if you see a comedian with 100 people and everyone starts laughing, like you will laugh,
for sure.
Like, you know.
I think the only reason that you don't end up with mass crying fits is because people tend to be more guarded against crying as opposed to
especially
laughter.
public crying.
A whole bunch of people laughing.
Yeah, you
know that's going to make you feel good.
That's
so
right.
you'll drop your guard and you go, I'm going to have a good old laugh.
That's right.
Good chuckle.
Okay, that's some interesting science facts, definitely.
Yeah, I'd go more there into, say the neurotransmitters themselves, and you'd move into realms of then depression and interesting the low activity of the thyroid gland, which is responsible for the production of many of your neurotransmitters. But this is again energy and motivation. If you have a suppressed thyroid gland, for example, you often feel lethargic, sleepy, and that will and can lead to, I won't say it will, but it can lead to depressed states.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on and talk about some of this filmmaking. And this, as I said, I really noticed the music in this one, the way they layered that up. Give us your take on some of these elements here.
First of all, the camera of this is beautifully shot with a extreme shallow depth of field. And you'd probably notice that, like lots of super close-ups, extreme close-ups, lots of close-ups, people's faces, all that touching we talked about. But there was a depth of field. So what we mean by that is quite blurry and then something's in focus. So a shallow depth of field means there's only a little bit in focus in your shot. So there was lots of that throughout the film. There was a beautiful shot where Silas he walks towards the camera, towards Nia, and he's totally out of focus and he walks into shot. There's actually a show at the moment called The Discovery of Witches, based on a well-known series of books, Witches, Vampires, See the Connection. And that is very similar to this film.
Is that on Netflix?
No, it's not on Netflix. I think it's BBC. So if you can get access to BBC, I'm sure it's a BBC. Australian actress is playing the lead of that show, young actress. I quite liked it. I've seen the first season, which was this year. But that has that shallow depth of field so everything is blurry apart from something in the shot. Like it's very unusual to do that in films and stuff. This film did it, that TV show does it. There was also a little bit like you might have noticed similarity of the camera to The Lobster. There was some abstract shots. So especially early in the film, Silas, that isolation. So you have this nice big wide shot and he's, just down here on this part of the lower right-hand corner of the shot, and everything else is void of anything.
That was the nightmare wake-up scene where you're sort of sitting like you're looking at a painting, like a framed
Yep.
picture, and he's just sort of lower right hand, and then shoots off out of scene, and you don't actually see the action.
Yeah, and it wasn't as abstract as Yorgos Lanthimos, lobster director stuff, over the shoulder weird stuff, but it was definitely making a bit of an abstract statement. Even the scene where he decides to leave Atmos the job, and he says it to the HR woman, like they're both shot in the kind of corners of each shot, and it's, like they're alone, really. That's what I was picking out of that. So it made a lot of sense, as you said, extreme close-up. So, and I was a bit unsure about this, but there's the scene sort of more outside where he meets Nia outside and stuff. There's a lot of that handheld, so there's a bit of deliberate shakiness going on. So maybe to do with the, the relationship building, or maybe to do with sort of like we're spying on them a little bit. I'm not too sure, but there was a bit of handheld in a few scenes. So whereas the rest of the film was like very stable. You said the music. I thought the music with this was pretty gentle and downplayed. Actually, it was pretty quiet.
Maybe.
Like it was there, but it was pretty quiet. There wasn't anything that blew me away. Again, like in The Lobster, we had the big orchestral slow motion scenes like I talked about.
What about where
did it stand out to you? Yeah.
So, well, what I really noticed was that it was very gentle and quiet, and very single instrument for the most part.
Yeah.
And then as his emotions built, or as the scene's emotions built, more instruments were coming in.
Okay.
And maybe I sort of noticed it a lot because we were watching it in the evening and the kids were trying to get to sleep. And in fact, Elliot kept calling out saying, "Could you turn the volume down?" I'm like, no, we're trying to watch a movie, a grown-ups thing to do. But yeah, so when they had their lovemaking scene, for example, these long, drawn-out sort of synth pads building, and then a little bit of a drum coming in, also cymbal. And then finally some like distorted guitar, heavy riffs coming through, and I was going, "Oh, this is."
You picked up way more of me than the sound of this one.
And that build as the intensity of their scene grew, and then it sort of went almost silent again when it was like the next day, and I just kind of sitting there having a bit of a chat. And then the next bit I noticed in particular was when he was considering suicide. We had the same sort of thing, they had the sort of almost keyboards
building up,
sort of stuff, and he's walking up to the edge, and there's a big crescendo of multiple instruments coming in over top of each other. Yeah. Until finally he takes a deep breath and steps back.
Oh, you picked up way more than me on the music this time.
I think I was a bit more sensitive because we had to keep turning volume up and down, and the music would get up loud and start becoming intense. I have to turn it down a whole bunch. And
I got to watch this on the big screen, but I was on my own. But I felt like one of my first impressions at the end of it was that was a really quiet movie. Like the dialogue was quite like they do a lot of whispering.
They're talking with silence.
And because the emotions aren't there, even those other scenes, like you said, when he says he has SOS, they're just like like there's not the like yelling or screaming or anything.
I was almost tempted to put subtitles on.
Yeah.
So because after they had their love scene, they're basically whispering.
They are whispering.
And often in movies where they're doing a whispering, they sort of do that. They amplify it. They
boost it, yeah.
So it's you can tell that they're whispering, but it's loud.
Yeah.
This was whispering. We were leaning forward trying to.
I was too.
Get what they're saying in case they said something important.
When I watched it the second time, I had my headphones and on the laptop and stuff, so I could hear it more. But it was my first impression was very quiet, but I think that made sense, again, to the movie, to the emotion. For the most part, it was quite a sparse to the movie. And I think, again, for the same reasons as The Lobster, which had this very muted emotional quality to it, kind of tended to keep the music out of it a fair bit until you got these sort of scenes that had impact. That was a bit more noticeable with The Lobster because of the orchestral hits and the strings. There was certainly at least those two scenes where there was like a real build-up of sound that was going to wake the kids. Yeah. My impression was, the quietness and that, and I guess, I didn't quite pick up on those bits, but with that leads me into like the lighting and the symbolism of the white. Like there's lots of white in the film, and that, the start of the film, he's all in white. She's actually quite white. There's a lot of that soft focus, which just encourages sort of whiteness in the shot. Even, you might be shooting under a light like this or bright lights or daylight, but it's sort of more of a softer white, everything's white. But when they walked through society, everyone seemed to be in white suits and white versions of uniforms.
The gardens they walked through were very semi-tropical.
Yeah,
So,
but then the walkways were very white, and everything was the buildings were white, and that's why when I watched the second time, I really was like, everything is very clinically white. On one side, white is pure, it's innocent, it's virginal. And I guess that's where symbolically, a film where you don't touch each other and, don't have emotion,
I guess
reaction.
calming as well, you could say.
You could say it also
doesn't have
calming.
like a brilliant red or an orange or something, which would kind of be...
Or red, no.
That'll boil your blood up. That way.
Valentine's Day, don't show them red, Yeah, but I quite like that. They were very consistent. The film did that all the way through. They didn't hesitate. Sometimes films can dwindle a bit on those effects, but the film really stuck
the
with
den was all concretes. It reminded me a lot of the shopping centre where I grew up in Canberra.
Probably shot in a shopping centre.
It came out of that era where it was just concrete slabs. The whole lot was all tilt panel, unpainted, just concrete.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, it was just very fortress-like.
And see, symbolically, setting-wise, to get to the den, you had to go through like that tunnel. It was
curved
tunnel,
off
so
to the
off to
tunnel.
the side, and then you come out, and it's this, this, as you said, it's the Canberra Shopping Centre?
Yeah. Belconnen Mall.
But on that as well, separately, not the white, but the lines. I said that earlier. So yeah, that curved wall, but they had these walkways, didn't they? So there were lots of walkways and they were all very curved.
Well, that curved...
There was that weird thing that Nia and Silas worked at a meet outside, and it was...
Well, at the den where you went through that tunnel.
Yep.
That was a very ribbed.
Yes.
It was all, the whole thing was all
going through a tunnel to another place.
And slatted panels on the flooring as well.
But that place that also Nia and him, like some sort of walkway thing. It was
really,
like but it sort of had a timber, and then we saw the steel sort of, again, but just lines. There was like a steel sort of treetop walk thing that you saw people walking over. The buildings were either very straight or going off to the side. In other films I've talked about, in Passengers and that, the symmetry and stuff. This film didn't do it. It was all the lines were going everywhere. When he became the gardener as well, the lines he went down. Like he went underground almost, but not quite underground, but it was like he went down into the garden. And the lines, the walkway went down.
Yeah, most of the walkways that people were walking around on seemed to be up and separate from the garden.
Yeah, so I thought the lines were really interesting, and maybe, symbolically, they crossed the line. Eh? Do you like that? They crossed the line?
See, that's the thing, is that there's a lot of lines. There's a very diverse environment in terms of the shapes.
Yep.
But all the colours were all the same. So you could have all different shapes and sizes, but not different colours.
Yeah.
So long as it's white.
I mean, you could go very deep into that symbolism, of course, because... See, something that I didn't say was sound, but it picked out to me that when they talked in the outside cafeteria, they were talking, and the office workers said before, they weren't faced talking, and they were talking, and there was kind of easy, classical, gentle music playing, but there was also a deliberate ambient noise of what to me sounded like bugs and stuff. Like almost like you're in the jungle.
Yeah.
And I thought it's a bit loud, that ambient noise. And I just wondered, and because then later, when he is the gardener and that, and then Nia and him meet in the garden, you think kind of symbolically, garden becomes overruly and, wild and, like love, like it can become out of control. So all these lines in the clinical society versus the garden, you know what I mean? Like flourishing. And that to me led me to another symbolic thing of this story is a bit, we've got the Romeo and Juliet thing, but maybe a bit Adam and Eve as well.
Yeah, forbidden fruit.
Forbidden fruit, like I said before. So just that idea of, I think the film was trying to go there in a bit of deep.
Yeah, I mean, for what on the surface
what it was.
Seems like a bit of almost a young adult romance. There's a fair bit.
I think there's a
to
lot
the movie
deep,
making. It wasn't. For example, I watched The Giver, and that was a bit more straightforward.
Yep.
Young adults sort of coming of age, discovering emotion type deal. Again, it's another one of those ones where everyone lacks emotion. It's in black and white until he, like Dorothy reaching Land of Oz, starts to gain emotion himself. Right. He stops taking the injections and goes colourful, but it was a far more simplistic vision of that because they were focusing more on the action of this guy trying to escape and give. being the giver. But, whereas this one here, I think they're exploring more fully the whole, I guess, the moviescape.
Yeah.
And the landscape as part of the extended existence of these two people, and the surrounding society. Like it was a videographic Venn diagram, I suppose you might be, where they were the overlap.
But I agree. That's what I think. I think there is a bit of depth to this. Plot-wise, we went through it before. Very much like Passengers, Save the Cat. The Blake Schneider. Hollywood obviously is liking that at the moment. They like that structure. So if you're out there writing,
Pixar lives off it.
Yep. You can see the plot points.
That's how I wrote Exit Plan.
There we go. So the experts are doing it. So follow that. And I could see similarities to The Lobster. It was funny, like watching The Lobster and seeing this. I mean, you think both are, falling in love and versions of love and that emotionless part of The Lobster, especially, that sort of abstract.
And when he becomes the loner, there's punishment for being... making contact.
Correct, yeah. And he does it in this film.
This one, they've got sort of...
He isolates himself, doesn't he? Yeah. And then also the den is where you're going to go. I did see similarities. We talked about Romeo and Juliet. I also saw Gattaca, the 1990s science
I've got to see that. I've got to watch that again.
Maybe do need to watch that.
Maybe we should do that one.
We could add that onto it. That's a good one. And also, I know they've made a recent movie of this, or TV movie, but the classic book Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
So I could see some similarities in this story to that, or maybe some homage to it, especially in the idea of the illustrations and the idea of the world beyond and people being out there. And, I think you said, I love it. There's a line in this when he talks about that where he goes, they stand around the campfire to express their anxiety or something.
To combat what they call anxiety.
Yes, it's we don't know what anxiety is, but these people do, and to us, or to me, it's they're the normal people.
Well, if you're stuck out in some post-apocalyptic wilderness, goodness knows what wild animals and things about the place,
and even other humans,
other wild humans, are even more dangerous.
But that bit to me, because I've read that book a couple of times and quite like it, and I could see some homages to that, I think, or some connections. So. Yeah, that's my technical rundown.
Okay, well,
let us know out there, if you're still listening to this episode, what you thought about any of the technical parts. Did you get into this symbolism? Did you think that it was worth looking into? Did you think that they discussed those symbolic elements through the white and the Adam and Eve and some of those other connections, or did you think no, it was a little bit more straightforward?
We did get some feedback on The Lobster.
Did we?
Yes.
Wow.
We've got the I absolutely hated that movie.
Okay.
So that was one response.
All right.
To which I said, yep, that seems to be the way the reviews were either love it or hate it. The very next person then commented on and said, I was one of the ones who absolutely loved it. I've watched it multiple times.
Yeah.
So
verbally, when I've told people about The Lobster, everyone that apart from you and me has said, I couldn't watch the whole thing. Basically,
that's quite confronting.
You know what I mean? They were like, I watched half of it and I couldn't go on with it. And I kind of think, then you missed the second bit.
You missed the payoff.
But you and I seem to, and my wife was like, you two seem to really like it. And I'm like, yes, we do.
Yeah. So I was actually going to talk a little bit. The other thing that this society modeled a little bit, and I don't want to go into it because we've got to sort of wrap up, is a lot of other forbidden situations. So it really spoke to the AIDS scare.
Yeah, that's true.
AIDS doesn't have that same stigma as it used to because we've obviously progressed. But certainly I remember in the 80s and 90s, it was like that was the boogeyman. That was, and you'd hear stories of someone was diagnosed with AIDS and they'd basically be ostracized. They had to.
That's a really good point.
All their sports, people wouldn't share food with them.
Yeah.
They were scared. And it was a similar sort of thing, but also then I guess you sort of say interracial sort of relationships. Again, you've got the same sort of thing as you're having feelings for someone from a different caste or class or sect or race or something. Oh dear. And he said, no, don't worry, it's not contagious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this is just my personal shame that I like a woman. You know, I was like, well, you perhaps maybe want to reconsider that. Perhaps we're going to have the cure for homosexuality pretty soon. Yeah. And so it was a whole homosexual thing again.
Okay,
So I saw a lot of that. Won't go into that anymore because there's this, as you said, there's a lot to unpack, and you can read a lot into this film and get a lot out of it.
Which is great, and I think it makes it a good movie. It makes it worthwhile, definitely to watch.
Well, here we are. We've prattled on about all these points.
Yeah.
For quite some time as well. So
we do joy watch, and we hope other people out there joy watch. That's the whole idea.
You got to learn how to take the good stuff out of these things, because you only live once, and you can learn every day.
Definitely, man.
So it was a great movie. It was by Drake. It was directed by Drake. What's his last name?
Drake is his last name.
Oh, Drake, Mr. Drake.
Sorry. No, sorry. Might have to edit that. No, Drake Doremus.
Doremus, yeah.
Yeah, Doremus, yeah. Sorry, Drake is his first name.
Yeah, okay. So, and then we got Nicholas Hoult, Kristen Stewart, and then we've got some great honourable mentions there with Guy Pearce and
Jackie Weaver.
Who's
in every... You watch out. You watch a movie, you will see that she is in a movie.
I'm going to see her in everything now.
You will see her in everything. Everything, since she did Animal Kingdom, the Australian movie in, I think that's 2012, 2013, and wins an Oscar, you know... Hollywood's been all over her, you know. She's been in I've seen her in comedies, and I saw her in this, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't watch a movie.
Oh, she was very good.
Oh, she is very good, you know. And this was only a small role for her, you know. You give her a juicier role, and she'll smash it. But she just seems to be in everything at the moment. Good for her. You know, later in her career, you know, she's come to.
I'm very excited for next week's. In fact, I was very excited to discover that this is the 40th anniversary of Alien, the original. You know, monster creeping through the air ducts, eating people movie.
So good.
One of my favourites to watch. Mm-hmm. So we're watching that next episode.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to talk about that. We'll try to keep it to below a 5-hour episode length. And so make sure you definitely watch that. There's also there are 6 web short stories that have been released online.
Okay.
I saw that they were there. I didn't sort of, log in to get a hold of them, but I'm definitely going to check those out.
About Alien?
Yeah, Alien.
Okay.
So they're each sort of short stories set in that universe of Alien.
Okay, all right.
So examining different parts, presumably of the Alien and of the Weyland Company and of various explorers.
Are they little fictional stories? Or are they? Yeah. Okay, excellent.
Little short movies.
So where do you get them? Where can you find them? Is it just through the Alien?
You can have to do a Google search for...
Alien website.
Yeah, Alien 40th Anniversary short web series. I don't know, I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah,
I can't
Sounds
pick
good.
the name of it. So that's going to be next week, or the week after, sorry. And that's going to be freaking awesome.
Ooh, yeah, looking forward to watching Ripley again. I might just have to watch that one 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, well, I'm going to crack out the old... I got the old Super Special Edition DVD. It was a 9 DVD box set for the 3 movies. Yeah, so it's got theatrical and a couple of directors and then some documentaries and special features.
Just what you want.
It's amazing.
Hours and hours of talking about films.
So I guess that's it then.
Yep.
Thanks for coming around and chatting with me, Mark.
No worries. Thanks, Surrey. And it'd be great to hear any listeners' response out there about Equals. Please go check it out. Please let us know what you think about Equals or anything that we have talked about on this podcast. It'd be great to hear from you. And check us out on Twitter. It's
Space Brains Pod.
Yep. On Instagram, which is just Space Brains. And on Facebook, Space Brains Podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay. All of those social medias, please check in, comment, let us know. And we will see you next episode for Alien.
See ya.